big chain. Heavy in the game, little homie, I'm doing big things.
Okay.
Big things. And them bitches, they mesmerize, they recognize.
Young Khalifa, man.
I keep it so G.
Taylor Gang or die. Ooh, a little Kush and OJ to open up the show. How relevant. Of course, opening with a little Wiz Khalifa, some Young Khalifa, man, from back in the Dizzy. That was the Kush and OJ mixtape in honor of, folks, I don't know if you heard this. I'm going to tell you this before I even tell you who I am. Our dear friend, OJ Simpson, has passed away. That is correct. At the age of 76, he lost a battle to cancer. Now, well, real quick, my name is Jimmy Selesky. You are watching live from the studio, the Daily Edition. We're going to talk about a bunch of things, which I will tell you about in just a moment. But the first thing we're going to talk about is this OJ situation. I found this out, I believe, at the gym. I was at the gym, and a guy was at the squat rack next to me, kind of a little bit older than me, and he goes, "Hey, you're Persian, right?" Now, I've never spoken to this guy in my life, but he was very confident I was Persian. I said, "No, I'm Greek." He was like, oh, okay, I thought you were Persian. I was like, "Are you Persian?" Now, this guy was obviously Persian, and he had blue eye contacts in, which is a very Persian move. And I was like, "No, I'm Greek." Close enough, though. And it made me feel good because now I'm getting like brown guy points. You know, that's always cool. I like being a little bit ambiguous, especially in April before I tan. That's a good sign. I take that as a good sign. And then he comes back up to me. He says, "You know, Persians are the sons of Perseus in Greek mythology." And I was like, "Oh, word? I didn't know that." Perseus, the Greek guy? What did he do? He was the son of a god and some other woman. He's not the guy who took out the Minotaur. He did something. I forgot what Perseus did. But apparently he is responsible for the Persians. So thanks a lot, Perseus. Anybody who's seen the movie 300 knows what I'm talking about there. No, I fuck with Persians. They're cool. They are now known as Iranians. Iranians? They're not called Persians anymore. That was a big mistake, I think. Persian sounds way cooler. And Iranians still refer to themselves as Persian. They speak Farsi, I believe. And he knew a little Greek. He was like, "Ya sutikani sefkaristopoli." I was like, "How do you say hello in Farsi or whatever?" He was like, "Chatori." I was like, "All right, I'll remember that." And I will remember that because it's like Chatori. So that was nice. But anyway, later on during the day, I'm at the bench rack now. He's doing something close by, and he goes, "Hey, OJ, he died today." I was like, "What? OJ died?" Yeah, he was like, blah, 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 he got cancer, blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Oh, man." He was like, "But he took a couple people with him, so it's not bad." I was like, "That's true, dude. OJ's kill-death ratio, pretty solid." Pretty solid. Better than mine so far. My kill-death ratio is 0-0. OJ's is debatably 1. No, debatably 2 and 1. And we'll get into that in just a moment. We are also, of course, going to touch upon a couple other big things in the news. I want to talk about this Dexter Reed shooting in Chicago. It happened last month, but it seems to be really hitting the news this week. So we'll definitely talk about that a little bit. And I might just briefly touch upon this cognitive test thing with Biden. Apparently, he is declining to take a cognitive test before the next election, which is kind of, I think, fairly unprecedented according to my extensive 2.5-minute research. It's pretty traditional since Nixon that the president undergoes a physical and a cognitive test. I don't know if that's every year or before every election. It might be every year. And I'm pretty sure he took one last year. So I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit. But before we do, let's get back to the topic at hand. By the way, folks, remember, if you hate this video, do not subscribe. I'm warning you. Do not accidentally click the subscription button, and whatever you do, definitely do not click the like button if you don't like this video. Why would you do that? However, I will say, if you happen to like this video, let's say, hypothetically speaking, if you're enjoying this content, then on purpose, click the subscribe button and the like button, because that helps. It helps us get pushed in the algorithm to bring this powerful message of positivity to the world on a grander scale. And it also helps you know when we put out new content. It's a win-win. It's a two-player sway. Okay? So I just wanted to get that out of the way real quick. Anyway, back to Mr. Orange Juice Simpson himself, Orenthal James Simpson. Now, I am not a chick, which means I didn't really get that into the real-life true crime documentary that was the O.J. Simpson trial. I'm a guy. Oh, hey, what's up, dude?
Hey, your windows are open. It's going to start to rain.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks, man. Thanks for letting me know. Sorry about that, folks. That was the carpet cleaner neighbor letting me know that my windows were down, my car windows, and that it was about to rain. So that was a good catch. I would hate for my car to get wet, especially the interior. Anyway, where were we? O.J. Simpson. As I said, I did not pay too much attention to the criminal trial itself. Now, mind you, this trial was happening in real time, I believe in like 1992, which is the year I was born. So clearly, not just the fact that I'm a guy, but also the fact that I was a baby. A guy baby during the time of this trial. You know I wasn't paying attention. However, this case has been this murder case, of course, of Nicole Brown Simpson and her lover, friend, Ron Goldman, is one of the most prolific criminal cases in American history. Is that fair to say? I mean, there's very few trials that conjure up an immediate reaction in everyone's mind. Like, everyone knows about the OJ thing. It's easily one of the most prolific cases in criminal history in America. So obviously there's been numerous series, documentaries, movies, whatever. There was a Netflix thing, I think it was Netflix thing about, I want to say like 5, 6, 7 years ago. I think I was dating my double ex at the time, my ex before my most recent ex. And obviously, you know, them being girls, they watched the shit out of it. And, you know, it had like David Schwimmer as Rob Kardashian. It had, I think, Cuba Gooding Jr. as OJ. And I kind of absorbed some of it by osmosis. But I never really learned too much into it. I kind of just assumed that everyone I talked to pretty much agrees that this guy did it. And I don't really know anybody who doesn't think he did it. Is there anybody that doesn't think OJ did it? Like, you would think this would be like maybe something that would be divided by a generational boundary, or maybe perhaps, you know, a racial boundary or something. But pretty much everyone you talk to, regardless of color, creed, or whatever, is pretty certain that OJ murdered his ex-wife and her friend guy. But he got away with it. He got away with it. Then he was later found liable for the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman in a civil trial, which is not a criminal case. It's just a lawsuit. So he was found for like tens of millions of dollars liable for the deaths, which is kind of wild. I mean, that is just kind of the way the legal system works. You know, a criminal case requires, in order to have a conviction, it requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt. However, However, a civil case, which is just a lawsuit, something like that, just requires a preponderance of the evidence, which means the jury no longer has to say there is proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he killed these people, like they would in a criminal case to convict him, send him to prison. In a civil case, they simply just have to go, yeah, I'm pretty sure he definitely is responsible for this. So now you get found liable for money. That's also why, and we'll talk about this maybe a little later, maybe even on tomorrow's episode, why you find that a lot of these sexual assault allegations from like several decades ago in many cases, but also even recent ones that could still fit within the statute of limitations for criminal charges, often just go to civil court and, wind up being for a lawsuit of money because you don't need as much proof, or really apparently any proof at all, in order to sue someone, especially if they just settle with you out of court. So that seems to be the way people go, unfortunately. Now, I looked into some of the background here because my main debate was, obviously I wanted to talk about OJ on today's show, but I don't like the idea of talking down on someone I don't like speaking ill of the dead, especially like the day they die. But assuming this guy is a murderer, I don't really feel that bad about it anymore. He wrote a book called If I Did It after he was acquitted. There's a difference between being acquitted of charges and being found innocent. Being found innocent is exoneration. Being found not guilty is not being found innocent. Not guilty does not equal innocent. And then he writes a book, like I said, If I Did It. And then he later goes to jail in 2008 for armed robbery of his own stuff. This is another famous thing we know about OJ. He's just full of stories. He gets sued for millions and millions of dollars, found liable for the deaths of his ex-wife and her friend Ron Goldman. Not guilty of murdering them, but just $30 million liable for the fact that they happen to be dead. Because that's how stuff works. And so I guess that results in him having to sell a bunch of his Super Bowl rings or whatever else, memorabilia, Heisman trophies, whatever. And then he attempts to steal them back in armed fashion and then goes to jail for that. So I first type in Nicole Brown Simpson because I'm like, what's the significance of her? Like, who's that? Because the other thing about this case is there's so many people that are relevant in today's culture because of this case. The Kardashians really kind of rose to fame, I'm pretty sure, as a result of this criminal case. Johnny Cochran became a legendary household name because of this case. Like, so many things spawned out of this. And I'm wondering, who was Nicole Brown Simpson? So I read into it. She's born in Frankfurt, West Germany. So this is the Wikipedia section for Nicole Brown Simpson. Relationship with O.J. Simpson. Brown met the American football player O.J. Simpson in 1977. Now, O.J. was born in 1947. Nicole Brown Simpson was born in 1959. So at this time, O.J. was 30. Nicole Brown Simpson was 18. Nice, O.J. When she was working as a waitress at a Beverly Hills nightclub called The Daisy, they began dating while Simpson was married to his first wife, Marguerite, who was pregnant with their daughter, Erin, at the time. Nice. Simpson and Marguerite divorced in March 1779. Wow. March 1979. Simpson and Brown married on February 2nd, 1985. That's Groundhog's Day. Nice. 5 years after Simpson had retired from professional football. Their marriage lasted 7 years, during which they had 2 children. During their marriage, Simpson physically abused Brown. Not nice. According to a police report of an incident that occurred on New Year's Day in 1989, Simpson shouted, "I don't want that woman sleeping in my bed anymore. I got 2 women, and I don't want that woman in my bed anymore. No room for 3, OJ? May I interest you in a California king, perhaps? Perhaps we could evade a double murder?" Brown called the police multiple times to report Simpson's abuse. He was arrested once in 1989, after which he pleaded no contest to spousal abuse. However, Brown dropped the charges after her parents allegedly encouraged her to reconcile with Simpson, as Simpson provided her father, Lewis, with the opportunity to invest in a lucrative Hertz car rental facility at the Ritz-Carlton at Monarch Bay, California, which was financially beneficial for the Brown family. I like where their head is at. Sure, this professional football player, serial cheater, and serial abuser is constantly beating the shit out of you. But he hooked your dad up with a sweet gig at the Hertz rent-a-car facility in beautiful, world-famous Monarch Bay, California. So, you know what? Can you stop being so selfish, Nicole? Does it always have to be about you? Oh, my husband beats me. Oh, my husband constantly cheats on me. He has literally 2 women in the bed, and there's actually not even literal room for me in my own bed. Is it all about you? No, it's all about Hertz Rent-A-Car. So finally, against all odds, Brown filed for divorce on February 25th, 1992. I was just a mere negative 6 months old, citing irreconcilable differences. At the time of their separation, Simpson informed Brown of a 1-year ongoing extramarital affair he had with Tawny Katane, during which he gave her expensive jewelry. It ended when Katane married David Coverdale in 1989. Tawny Katane, that's the 80s music video chick. She's like the chick that's dancing around on Whitesnake's car. Pretty popular. She was in a billion videos. And David Coverdale is the lead singer of Whitesnake. So eventually, I think if you manage to do 5 or more music videos dancing for Whitesnake, you get to marry one of the members of the band. So that worked out for her. And so she stopped being the mistress of O.J. Simpson and married David Coverdale. This whole thing is just, following the divorce, Simpson and Brown had a volatile relationship, but eventually reconciled. Why? Audio released during the murder trial of O.J. Simpson revealed that Brown called 911 on October 25th, 1993, crying and saying that O.J. was going to beat the shit out of me. When police arrived, Brown was secretly recorded by Sergeant Craig Lally. He gets very animalistic look in him, Brown stated. All his veins pop out. His eyes are black, just black. Hey. Cold. Okay. Like an animal. Very, very weird. And when I see it, it just scares me. Brown also stated Simpson had not hit her in 4 years. Well, I like to imagine there's a little counter in Nicole Brown's kitchen, a little calendar, and it's just days since OJ hit me. And she's like, "Look, officer, it's been 4 years." And then it's just 0. No, we made it so far. So now I'm starting to feel less bad about making fun of this guy, OJ, because even if he didn't kill her, he doesn't sound like a great dude. Look, abuse aside, because that's obvious. But even just the cheating. You're not a good person if you're serially cheating on your spouse. If you've cheated on every girlfriend you've had, if that's a way of life for you, you're not a solid, reliable, honorable person. If you can't even be faithful or honest to the most intimate relationship in your life, how can I expect you to be honest or reliable to your friends or your family or people that aren't as close to you as your wife. You know, it's just not a good look. I think if you cheat on your wife consistently and abuse her, I get a free pass to kind of take a little bit of a, you know, lighter-hearted tone when I discuss your death. And that's not even incorporating the fact that you probably killed her and her new friend. So Rob Kardashian, I remember going, what the hell's with Rob Kardashian, though? The guy who's responsible for Kim, Khloe, Kendall. Maybe not Kendall. I don't know. Whatever. He's responsible for all that. He's done a lot. But I think it started here. Kardashian and Simpson first met around 1967, while both of them were at USC, University of Southern California, and became close friends. Simpson was the best man at Kardashian and Kris Houghton's, now Kris Jenner's, wedding in 1978. Following the June 12, 1994 murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, Simpson stayed in Kardashian's house to avoid the media. Kardashian was the man seen carrying Simpson's garment bag that day that flew back from Chicago. Prosecutors speculated that the bag may have contained Simpson's bloody clothes or the murder weapon. Wow. When Simpson failed to turn himself in at 11 a.m. on June 17, 1994, Kardashian read a letter by Simpson to the assembled media. The letter was interpreted by many as a suicide note. Okay? Simpson was charged with the murders and subsequently acquitted of all criminal charges in a controversial criminal trial. Kardashian had let his license to practice law become inactive before the Simpson case, but reactivated it to aid in Simpson's defense as a volunteer assistant on his legal team, alongside Simpson's main defense attorneys, Robert Shapiro and Johnny Cochran. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. I mean, come on, baby. Come on, man. As one of Simpson's lawyers and a member of the defense dream team, I'll say, Kardashian could not be compelled or subpoenaed to testify against Simpson in the case, which included Simpson's past history and behavior with his ex-wife, Nicole, and as to the contents of Simpson's garment bag. He sat by Simpson throughout the trial. Wow. The New York Times reported that Kardashian in the 1996 ABC interview with Barbara Walters that he had begun to question Simpson's innocence. I have doubts. The blood evidence is the biggest thorn in my side that causes me the greatest problems, so I struggle with the blood evidence. Kardashian and Simpson ultimately stopped speaking to each other. Oh, man. Well, that's kind of a genius move if you look at it. So what I'm gathering from this is Rob Kardashian and OJ are college friends from UFC. They're boys. He was best man, or OJ was best man at Rob Kardashian and Kris Kardashian's wedding. If it is the case, now Rob Kardashian had let his license to practice law expire at the time. He got it reinstated to become a volunteer member on OJ's defense team. Now, Rob Kardashian, also being an extremely close friend of OJ, according to this Wikipedia article, was transporting a bag or something of what many believe to be the bloody garments and crucial evidence in this case. However, because Rob Kardashian was now technically on Simpson's defense team, the court could not subpoena him to testify as to the contents of the bag, as to OJ's marriage, with which I'm assuming he had close relationship with as best friends. So that in and of itself is almost ingenious. He immunized himself from having to testify against his friend by joining his legal team out of basically not retirement, but his license had expired. I mean, that's like so much of this I can see why it's interesting and so obvious. Now, I just want to, I looked up the description of the murder is insane. So at the time of her death, Brown resided at 875 South Bundy Drive in Brentwood, Los Angeles, with her 2 children. On the evening of Sunday, June 12, 1994, Brown, age 35, was stabbed to death outside her home, along with 25-year-old restaurant waiter Ron Goldman. Her body was discovered shortly after midnight on June 13th. She was lying in the fetal position in a pool of blood. An autopsy determined that Brown had been stabbed 7 times in the neck and scalp and had sustained a 14-centimeter long, that's 5.5 inches for regular people, gash across her throat, which had severed both her left and right carotid arteries and breached her right and left jugular veins. Wow. The wound on Brown's neck penetrated 2 centimeters into her cervical vertebrae, nearly decapitating her. She also had defensive wounds on her hands. So that's just her death. Now, this dude, Ron Goldman, I just want you to take a peep at this and tell me if you think they were friends. Does this guy look like your ex-wife's friend? No. This 25-year-old waiter that your 35-year-old ex-wife is hanging out with? Hey, we're just friends. I doubt it, Ron Goldman. Now, I'm not saying you deserve to be stabbed to death, but while living in Los Angeles, Goldman took some classes at Pierce College. He learned to surf and enjoyed playing beach volleyball, rollerblading, and night clubbing. Let me rephrase that. Goldman took some classes at Pierce College. While living in California, he learned every single possible hot guy activity. Surfing, beach volleyball, rollerblading in the 90s, and night clubbing. I didn't even know night clubbing was an activity. It is if you're hot. If you're regular looking, night clubbing is like a way to spend a lot of money for no reason. But if you're hot, night clubbing is a hobby. Upon arriving in California, Goldman lived independently from his family and supported himself by working as an employment headhunter and tennis instructor. Nice. Tennis instructor. He then had a string of waiter jobs. Goldman told friends that he wanted to open a bar or restaurant in the Brentwood area. He had shared with his friends his vision that this would be not known by a name, but by the Ankh, an Egyptian religious symbol of life that matched the tattoo on his shoulder. I mean, could this guy be any more of a typical hot dude? He wanted to name his restaurant this. Just this. It doesn't have a name. This is the name. It's named after the tattoo on his shoulder. And you're going to tell me this guy wasn't fucking Nicole Brown Simpson. Now again, she insisted they were platonic friends. He insisted they're platonic friends. That's also what hot people do. It's kind of a weird flex that hot people do. Because when you're hot and you're hanging out with another hot person, everyone assumes you're banging. That's what they want to believe that. I sure hope they're banging. They're both very hot. And what hot people get to do is be like, no, we're just friends. Like, you wish. You wish we were fucking, but we're not. I'm hot. We're just friends. And the flex there is like, obviously we're not just friends. I'm fucking hot. She's hot. Friends? I don't even know they made Friends anymore. I'm hot. So, Ron Goldman and his restaurant, his ideal restaurant named after a Egyptian hieroglyph, never came to fruition. I don't mean to poke fun at Ron Goldman. I mean, honestly, I'm talking him up big time. How many times have I just called him hot in one 2-minute segment? I hope when I die, there's some dude out there that just talks about how hot I was for a significant portion of their unwatched YouTube show. But yes, I mean, look, at the end of the day, rest in peace, O.J. Simpson. I mean, look, you know, God forgives, and you know, I don't know what else to say. I feel like that's the right thing to say. You know, we pointed out his flaws, but at the end of the day, you know, respect for the dead, I guess. Moving on, speaking of the dead here, and I don't mean that jokingly, I just mean that is one way to segue into this next topic. Maybe not the best way, but we're here. I want to talk a little bit about this Dexter Reed case that went down, or shooting, police shooting in Chicago, again, like late last month, like March 21st, I believe. And it's just now like circulating the internet. Everybody's talking about it this week. So I guess it's made its way to national status. And it has all the markings of the type of police shooting you'd expect to be getting this type of national attention. That is a young black male, or just a black male in general, and police. And those two details alone seem to be the only pertinent, necessary facts of the case to establish a systemically racist police shooting. But what I find interesting about this case is that it may have jumped the shark because this is not catching. It's not catching because this is an obviously justifiable police shooting. So I have here, I want to show you a couple angles of the footage. And I'll try not to spend too much time, but once again, as you would imagine, not easy to find the full unedited, uneditorialized footage on YouTube because, as we've established in the past and continue to establish every day, we live in a world where you're not just allowed to see the thing. You're only allowed to see people tell you what happened. You're only allowed to see people tell you what they think about the thing, and therefore what you think about the thing. So it does require an immense amount of effort. The amount of effort that could only be expected by a normal person if they, I don't know, hypothetically had to put out an hour of content every day of the week, like myself, and therefore needed to find this footage. But I guarantee you, if I had like a wife and kids and like a stable career, like I probably should, I wouldn't have had time to find this. I would have just watched the CNN clip and taken their word for it. And that's kind of baked into the cake. It's kind of on purpose. But luckily, I have the time, baby. If there's one thing I got, it's time. So, this is the main angle. This is the first angle that we come across. This is body cam 1. This is the female cop, I believe. So there you go. Starting up.
Roll the windows down.
Roll the window down, man.
Roll the window down. What are you doing?
Roll this one down.
Roll that one down too. Hey, don't roll the window up. Don't roll the window
It's about
up.
6 p.m. at
Do
night.
not roll the window up.
on
Unlock the
March
doors
21st.
now. Unlock the doors now. Unlock the doors now. Open the door now. Open the door now. Open the door now.
Okay.
1164 David, shots fired, shots fired. Hey! Hey! Shots fired. Ferdinand Avers, 10-1, 10-1. Hey!
All right, so there's the guy right here. You can see right there. Okay, now we're gonna switch to a different angle here because that's kind of the main angle. That's a good angle to see the interaction, the initial pullover interaction. Now, this pullover was apparently because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But for the time being, he was pulled over for not wearing his seatbelt. In the initial interaction, the main angle, as I'm calling it, or body cam 1, you see he initially winds his window down. He's asked to, I don't know, either step out of the car or something. We'll hear it again in the next angle. Then he proceeds to wind his window back up. The door is locked. At that point, it's an obviously sketchy situation. And then what proceeds after you see. So this is the second angle. I consider this the best angle. The first one I called the main angle. This I'm calling the best angle. Because this is, you kind of just get a better view of the gunfight itself.
Don't roll the window up. Do not roll the window up.
Do not roll it
Unlock
up.
the doors.
Door.
Unlock the doors now.
Door.
Unlock the door now. Open the door now. Open the door now. Open the door now.
10-4.
Where?
All right, so this cop's running back, and you can see he's going to pop out from, yeah, there he is right there, and then he gets popped right there. So I'll just run that back real quick. There he is there, and that's when he finally gets shot. And then that cop pops him a couple more times. Yeah, right there. You can see the last cop shoots him a few times when he's down. And that'll be relevant in a moment as well. And one final angle for you before we start discussing it. This is body cam 4, and this is actually the footage from the camera of the officer who was hit. In that initial shot that popped off the whole gunfight, you'll see that the officer on the other side of the car from where the female cop was telling him to roll the window down, I believe he was shot with that initial bullet. So we'll see that from his perspective. So this is, he's on the other side of the car. You can see the other cop over there.
Hey, hold this one down too.
Unlock the door now.
I guess he's getting out his baton to be able to bust out the window or something. I don't know. Yeah, and he gets shot there. His arms just kind of limp there. It looks like you can see.
Where?
Yeah, and then you see the blood dripping on the ground there. I'll take that back a couple seconds. Yeah, right there you see the blood dripping on the ground from the gunshot. So, there's I think there was 4 total camera angles. I just showed you the 3. The one from the initial cop that was talking to him from the driver's side. The other cop that was behind her, which had the best angle of the shooting, the final killing of this man. And then, of course, the cop who was hit. So that's what you're looking at. In this situation, you are looking at a legal pullover for not wearing a seatbelt. And now I want to show you this real quick. I want to show you this too. This is the family's reaction. And so immediately right here, we see why this isn't catching the same way that things like George Floyd did and, Trayvon Martin or whatever. Because this one is obviously everyone can recognize. It's like, what do you expect to happen? when you fire on police officers. So the argument has now become he was shot 96 times. I was listening to a podcast the other night, and they discussed this for a little bit, and they said, so now the problem has become you killed him too much. Like, when you shoot at cops, you've just opened the gateway to be killed. They are now shooting at you, and they're shooting to kill you. In this case, obviously justifiably. So then the argument, the narrative becomes, why did they shoot him so many times? Now, obviously, in a situation where somebody's just standing over top of a dead body, shooting him in the face and, mutilating his dead body, that's obviously a different thing. But in the case of someone who is actively in a gunfight with several officers, one officer has been hit. There's multiple cars in the way, objects obstructing. You don't know what's going on. You don't have a clear view. You're already shooting at this person to kill them. And after the person is, whatever the word is, neutralized on the ground, a few extra shots are fired at the body to confirm that he can't still pick up the gun and shoot at them after they've stopped shooting at them. That, to me, is almost the fact that we are now getting to the point where that is now the case for some type of misconduct in the police force. People are calling for the firing of these officers. Obviously, they are ramping up for a lawsuit against the city of Chicago. This goes without saying. And obviously, they're going to get money for it because, unfortunately, that also goes without saying. So this is the family of the perpetrator. So this, what video did I click on here first? Let's show the mother-daughter interview first. Actually, let me show this.
Quickly escalated. CNN's Omar Jimenez spoke exclusively to the family of Dexter Reed and has their reaction to seeing the body camera video that was just released a few hours ago.
What was your reaction to seeing that video?
It was terrifying.
For Dexter Reed's sister, his mother,
Oh, Lord Jesus, please help me.
and his entire family, what played out on newly released body camera video is nothing but pain.
They shot him down like an animal. Why did they shoot him them many times? He's already dead. Why you study shooting him like that? They killed my son and they killed me too.
This is, how bad of an actor can you be? On both of them. And look, the thing is, obviously she's upset as his mother. Obviously his sister is upset. But you don't really get that. Look, I'm sorry. I'm getting bad actor vibes from this all over. Like, you're watching that, the sister's like, how did you feel? It was terrifying. And like, there's kind of like almost like a half smile there. I don't know what it's about. And then the mom is like playing that role and no one's buying. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I'm not buying this. I don't know if there's kind of some kind of weird, like emotional response that makes you appear to be faking your grief when interviewed. Maybe that's like the 6th stage of grief that I was unaware of, which is faking it. But I'm not buying it. And I'll tell you why I'm not buying it, because here's another video for you. This one's even more egregious. This one is like, it's beyond egregious.
He had just bought his new car 3 days before that. And he was just riding around in his car. He said, Mom, going for a ride. And they killed him. They killed him.
Oh, come on.
They killed him. They killed him.
Dexter got out of his car, unarmed,
really?
and was shot by the police. Based on the COPA report that you all received.
Come on. Look, maybe I sound like an asshole for saying that they're quote unquote faking it, but can you really blame me? I mean, how ridiculous was that? The fake feint, the perfectly timed feint, and then the lawyer getting up. He got out of his car unarmed. Well, how did the officer? Regardless, this does not strike me as a family that is in any way surprised by this outcome. You know, of course, you always get the graduation photo. That's a must. You have to have the graduation photo from 8 years ago, not the mugshot from a few months ago. As you can see here, let's pull that up for you for your viewing pleasure. So this is the picture we get, the graduation photo, obviously. And this is the picture from 5 months ago, the mugshot. So we're never going to get that. So 5 months ago, which would have been 4 months ago at the time of this shooting, he had been arrested. And I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that was probably not his first time being arrested. And it probably wasn't for nothing. It probably wasn't for not wearing a seatbelt, let's say. And this is kind of, I guess there's some type of disconnect. And we seem unable to bridge this gap as a culture, as Americans. The crime, whenever something like this happens, this will go down, and the narrative will be, man shot 96 times for not wearing his seatbelt. That's literally the story. If you watch CNN, if you watch any of these bullshit media companies, that's the story. Local high school graduate shot 96 times for not wearing his seatbelt. And this is what I mean by jumping the shark. Now, to be honest, I don't even feel like getting into the whole idea of just if you were to simply roll down your window and accept the ticket for not wearing your seatbelt, as I have done for every time I've been pulled over in traffic, and I've gone off on this before about the experiences I've had with cops being assholes. I am well aware that cops overstep the boundaries at times, but somehow, amazingly, I have managed to get out of every single traffic stop without being shot 96 times. And I have a sneaking suspicion that that's not simply because I'm white. Something tells me that there were other factors at play. So when I see somebody that does get pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt, and then 3 minutes later, man down, I'm in. There's something in me that just, maybe it's just me, but there is something in me that goes, what happened? Why? And this is a question that you will not really find asked all that much if you watch these news platforms. Because the narrative that they want you to believe is that black men are getting pulled over for the crime of being black and shot hundreds of times for no reason, because cops are bored. I fully recognize that some of these laws are applied selectively. I got in a conversation with one of my friends about the Ocean City Boardwalk. Ocean City, Maryland. It is Maryland's beach. They actually have a nice boardwalk. Ocean City, Maryland is a good beach town. It can be a little trashy, but if you know the places to go, if you know the places to stay, if you stay in Midtown or higher, You avoid the garbage. The boardwalk isn't the best showing of what Ocean City has to offer. But if you kind of go there, you stay more in Uptown in the, 70th Street and the triple digit streets, it's nice. And you go to the bars and it's nice. And they have this law on the boardwalk. It used to be no smoking. Well, obviously back in the good old days, you could smoke cigarettes and cigars on the boardwalk, no problem. You could walk into a bar and smoke cigarettes and cigars, no problem. But those days are long gone. So then they got rid of smoking on the boardwalks. Okay, this is to be expected. For some reason, unfortunately, this is to be expected. But then they have this new thing, no vaping on the boardwalk. Now, the boardwalk's outdoors. This struck many people as, including myself, as what a ridiculous law. What a ridiculous law to have. And then I thought about it for more than 3.2 seconds, which is something that I find not a lot of people tend to do. It's not that hard. I'm not calling myself a genius here. I'm just saying, think about something for more than 3 seconds, and you might come to a slightly different conclusion than you did at first glance. And the realization that I had was they have laws like no vaping on the boardwalk to allow the boardwalk police, the Ocean City police, leverage to enforce crimes that are actually not technically enforceable, but need to be enforced. And what do I mean by that? I mean, who vapes primarily? Young kids. Yeah, adults vape, whatever. I guarantee you, if there's a 45-year-old man, I don't care if he's black, white, yellow, red, whatever, the police are not going to say anything to the 45-year-old man, 35-year-old man, walking up and down the boardwalk, pushing a stroller with his family, hitting an e-cigarette, hitting a Juul. They're not going to say anything to him. But when you have a gaggle of teenagers, 16, 17, 18, not old enough to get into the bars, they don't have any money, so they're not able to spend, they're not going in shopping. If they are, they're shoplifting, but you can't quite get them on that. They can't go into the bars and do anything, so they just loiter on the boardwalk, harassing people, causing issues, getting everyone's way, taking up the benches. But they're vaping. And so now the police have a technicality to come up to these kids and say, hey guys, you got to get off the boardwalk. See that sign? No vaping. Oh man, really? Yeah, sorry. You really think they'd walk up to a grown adult with his family vaping and say that? No, they wouldn't. It's probably been done by some stupid douche officer who doesn't understand his job, which is a lot of people. But for the most part, for the officers that do understand their job, that's why laws like that are there. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's kind of like how you get guys like Al Capone on like tax evasion or whatever they got him on for that, because they couldn't get him for the various hundreds of murders and organized crime. So instead they managed to get him on some technicality and then throw the book at him. This gives the legal system a means of getting you when they can't get you. Now, there's arguments against that as well, but I'm just establishing a point. We're going to talk about the flip side of that on tomorrow's show, actually. I plan on doing so with the FBI and the CIA and setups and psyops and all the above. But for the time being, it's just important to understand that laws like driving without a seatbelt, it's probably not a coincidence that this man, when they run his tags, has, I'm going to imagine, an extensive criminal history, an extensive arrest history. And the cops know that while he's not technically maybe doing anything that illegal at the moment that they can see, that they can be aware of, he is still technically doing something illegal that allows them to pull him over and then find out the way more illegal shit that he's obviously probably doing. And in this case, they were right. Like, I don't know, perhaps, for instance, having a gun on him available to shoot at cops. And you'd also have to believe that if a person gets drawn to this level of aggression by a simple traffic stop over a seatbelt, they're probably aware that whatever they have, warrants, I don't know, whatever they have in their car, whatever they have on them, is going to lead to them going back to jail. maybe for a long time. And maybe it's worth it to them to just try to get away and take a couple cops out with them. I don't know. I'm trying to examine the psychological, thought process that leads you to begin shooting at police officers over a traffic stop. But we see this a lot. And you have to imagine it's because there's a lot more at stake for them. Now, the people that would oppose me on this would say, no, we live in a country where police are systemically racist and black men are scared for their lives and feel like the only chance of survival they have is to fight back against the cops because we've seen all too many times that cops will kill innocent, unarmed black men even if they do comply. And I see your point and I raise you bullshit. And if anything, if that is the case, and that may very well actually be the case, whose fault is that? Do we actually exist in a society where police are going around finding excuses to kill black men, unarmed black men, for no reason? Just they can't wait to become the next Derek Chauvin. That's another crazy thing here. Have we seen what happens to these guys? Derek Chauvin got like 7 life sentences. I don't care how racist you are. I don't think there's a person racist enough on the fucking planet that's willing to take 7 life sentences and being known as one of the worst people in American history by pretty much everyone for the rest of his life and his family's life, just to get one chance to pop a random black guy on the street. I don't know. Maybe the worst trade deal ever. The Grand Dragon of the KKK isn't taking that trade deal. Okay? So this idea that cops operate with this feeling of like immunity, they can do whatever they want, we haven't necessarily seen that in particular in modern times. Maybe you could make the case for that decades ago. Probably still not. We'd probably have to go pretty far back in history when a cop could just kill a random black guy. Nobody cared. Nobody did anything about it. It wasn't a thing. I mean, you had the Rodney King thing happen in the early 90s. That's 35 years ago at this point. That wasn't exactly an example of the cops not getting any heat for the murder of a black man. That is arguably justifiable. But even so. So I will agree with you that whether or not that is the case, which I don't believe it is, but I will agree with you that that does seem to be what many people in this country believe to be the case. And that leads to, among many reasons, but could be one of the various reasons that someone like Dexter Reed might react the way he did. Because he has been told his entire life that if he gets pulled over for something even as minor as a seatbelt, he should be in fear for his life because that's the country we live in. And when you take a young, virile 25-year-old man who believes his life is in danger, even though it's not, but he's been lied to repeatedly over and over again by people who want him to believe that because it benefits them for him to believe that that's the society we live in, because it guarantees them votes and allegiance and dependence and all the other things that certain political groups and media and everything that benefit from this narrative, that don't give two shits about the fact that now you have caused people to believe this is the case, which could be leading to the unnecessary death of thousands of young black men who have been brainwashed into believing that their only way out of a traffic stop is this. And that's obviously not the case. I'm not going to sit here and entertain a serious conversation where you're going to sit here and attempt to tell me that that is the case. That if you're a gambling man, you should probably bet on if you're pulled over for a seatbelt, it's going to end in you getting shot 96 times without any other cause. But if that is the narrative that we're going to push, even in a shooting like this, where it's obviously justified, but we're still going to push this as a racial, systemic, corrupt issue. We're still going to try to push that narrative down your throat, down the way, further the narrative. Make it so this happens again. Make it so more people believe that that's the case so that another guy does this and dies unnecessarily. Now, I'm not saying that I think that was the case for this guy. I think this guy is an obvious criminal. I think you could tell that even from the best pictures they could find of him. I'm sorry. Like, when I see the pictures that they showed of him, the best ones they could find, the least criminally pictures they could find, it still doesn't surprise me. So I don't think that he did this because he feared for his life in a systemically racist, corrupt police society. I think that he maybe even rightfully considered this was his best way out for one reason or the other that I'm not going to speculate. But regardless, all of that doesn't matter. That's the main takeaway. The main takeaway here is, folks, none of that matters because the family will sue. The city will settle. The family will win millions and millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money for the justified and highly necessary killing of their son who fired at police, attempting to kill police officers. The city will have to pay many, 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 many millions of dollars for the crime of doing their job. And the police's jobs will be on the table for the crime of doing their job, for the crime of killing someone who was trying to kill them. Because that's how this works. And that's why this woman, who obviously knew this was the end. I mean, I've never seen a worse display of just clearly hamming it up, clearly trying to be the next one in line for that big cash payout from the city. That's what they're going for. They're piggybacking on the whole George Floyd thing. They know what it is. They don't think for a second that it was anything other than what it is. But they can't just come out and say that because there's millions of dollars that are right there for the taking that the city can't wait to give them. They just can't wait. So, I don't know. Whatever. Is anyone surprised? I'm not. Folks, I think that's about good for a Thursday. We have another show tomorrow, the Friday show. We have shows here Monday through Friday every week. I got a lot I want to talk about tomorrow, so I think we'll save that Biden cognitive thing for tomorrow. I want to talk, I hinted at it earlier, about this new kind of like this dude who works for the FBI. I forget his name, but we'll talk all about it tomorrow. It's kind of one of those like Matt, what's that guy's name that does those interviews where he like goes out with them and they don't know they're filming him, and he like goes out with these like government people that are just like over a couple drinks at dinner, just like spilling all these secrets about how corrupt they are and what they're doing. This is an example of that. And this guy's in the FBI, and he kind of like gives away a significant amount of information about how the FBI sets people up, how the CIA is involved, how the FBI encourages people to undergo civil lawsuits, to tank people monetarily that they don't like, that aren't playing along. So very relevant stuff. There's a great thread on Twitter that we're going to deep dive into on tomorrow's show, among other things. So you have that to look forward to. In the meantime, we got a lot done today. I'm happy to be here. As always, my name is Jimmy Selesky. This is live from the studio, the Daily Edition. Follow us across the board on everything: Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts at LFTS Podcast. Yeah, till next time, folks. Peace.